Welcome to the gallery for another how-to TTRPG. This episode we're taking a look at the Mistborn Adventure Game. This game is developed by Crafty Games and Brandon Sanderson based on the novel series of the same name. As of recording, there are two main campaign books, Mistborn and Alloy of Law, as well as a handful of supplemental books. Through this video, we'll start with character creation, give a shallow dive in some of the rules. Yep, that's shallow. And I'll give my final thoughts at the end. There are chapter guides in the description, as well as links to DriveThru RPG for the books. Let's get started. Character creation in Mistborn at first is going to feel very strange and almost alien, but don't let that scare you off. If you are familiar with dice pool systems like Shadowrun or World of Darkness, this will feel familiar. If not, and these are new concepts, I promise they will make sense by the end. The character sheet is divided into multiple sections. The book starts off with a bunch of questions to guide you through the personality of your character and their crew. Things like, why did you join a crew? Or, how did you live before you joined the crew? The focus for this video, we are looking at how to assign the numbers in the boxes and what they mean. Mistborn uses a modified point-buy system. You look at where you decide your character is strongest, where they're average, and where they're weakest. For things like attributes and standings, those have hard set values from those three concepts. For powers, that designation determines what type of character you are. For this tutorial, we're going to build a Mistborn. And so that means we need to put our strong into our powers. This gives us a rating of 4 in all known allomantic abilities. So all the metals, we have a rating of 4 with. That leaves us with assigning something to be average and something to be weak. And we have our standings and our attributes to look at. Our attributes are our physique, our wits, and our charm. These showcase the character's natural ability in those areas. Our standings are resources, influence, and spirit. And so that's things like wealth and financial ability, or political power and contacts, or fate and luck. Our Mistborn is going to be noble born. So we will assign them average standings and weak attributes. This is going to give us 9 points to spend across physique, charm, and wits. Now, no attribute may be less than 2, and because we chose weak, I can't have anything greater than 4. So we're going to slot those in real quick. And with everything starting at 2, we have 3 points left over. So I'm going to bump physique up to 4, because I want to be a little bit stronger. And I'm going to bump wits up to 3. We aren't very charming, but that's okay. Now, we have 11 points to spend across resources because we chose average. And so just like before, nothing can be lower than a 2, but because we chose average, we can now have a maximum of 6. So with everything at a 2, we have 5 points to spend across. And I'm going to raise everything up to 3. That gives me 2 points left over. I want influence and spirit over money. So I'll increase both of those to a 4. And so now we look at our stuff and we determine our resilience. So our resiliences are the injuries we can take, whether physically, which is health, socially, which is reputation, or mentally, which is willpower. To find our health, it's just physique plus resources, and we get our total. Same thing with rep, it's charm and influence, and willpower is wits and spirit. So like I said before, if you wanted to create a keeper, you'd also assign strong to powers, and you'd get a 3 in all known metals of Ferugami. If you wanted to be a Condor or a Misting, your powers would then be average instead of strong. And if you decided that you didn't want any powers, you would set it to weak. And that would give you 2 additional traits. Speaking of traits, every character starts with the basic traits as outlined on the sheet. Things like drive, profession, specialty, feature, personality. And they're nebulous on purpose. The idea here is that the player will pick one word or simple phrases to define what these traits are. And the whole goal with that is to allow for deeper customization of your hero. And the traits that you pick can add to your roles when appropriate. Some good ones would be like brawny or sneaky or Lord Venture's secret concubine. They cannot, however, be things like healthy or witty or charming. Further down on the character sheet, there is tragedy, destiny, secrets known. These are really things that are best discussed with your narrator. Because they can impact the overall story, it's really best to work with your narrator on what those need to be. The next section we look at is props. And this is a really fun way of handling equipment. Mistborn, I think, does something really, really well here that a lot of RPGs don't. A prop is an ever-present piece of gear. Unless there's a reason that a replacement can't be found, it comes back to you. Your character just goes and gets it from somewhere, right? They replenish it. The number of props you have is equal to your resources rating, and we're going to put a little asterisk next to that. As your rating goes up or down for any reason, so does your number of props. And this is generally a 1-to-1 ratio. One resource equals one prop. Now's a good time to go back and set your name, gender identity, your concept. Your race is going to be human or Ska, whatever that ends up being, or Terrace, or Khandra. All the other questions that are floating out there will be answered once the crew is fully together. And so now that you have a basic Mistborn Adventure Game character, you're ready to throw some dice at a table, or some coins, or nails, horseshoes, big metal plates that help you fly. I'm going to give out a quick spoiler warning. The information ahead in the rules overview does contain spoilers for Mistborn Era 1, possibly for Era 2, possibly some secret histories, and Stormlight Archive in Atlantis. If you plan on reading these books and you haven't already, just be warned that the information ahead could spoil some of that. The settings of Mistborn Adventure Game. You have the traditional settings are Era 1 or Era 2. In Era 1, you can have this be set at any point prior to Rashek's ascension, after the fall of the Lord Ruler, or even after the events of Hero of Ages. Most of this is considered Era 1 or pre-Era 1. This is the time when full Mistborns roamed, when preservation was stronger, and the Mists could snap someone into being a Mistborn. There is a lot of lore and world building already done, and it's relatively simple to just plug and play. Just because there are official settings doesn't mean that you have to play on Scadrial, or in Era 1, or in Era 2. You can tell your own story in whatever world you want, in whatever setting you want. Dice and drama. Strap in. This is different from most dice systems, and it might get a little confusing. Mistborn uses a D6 dice pool system. Simply means, when it comes time to roll, you're going to gather a bunch of D6, and you're going to roll them. The narrator will determine an attribute, standing, or power that is appropriate for the action the character's trying to do. The pool starts at equal to that rating. Things like traits or tools add to or shrink the die pool by 1 point per. If a pool is higher than 10, outside of combat, the player gets a free nudge for each die beyond 10, and then rolls 10 dice. So you build your dice pool, you've got 14 dice, you have 4 free nudges. If the pool is ever lower than 2, the player still rolls 2 dice, and the outcome worsens by 1 for each die roll below 2. No roll may ever be smaller than 2 or larger than 10. Period. That is a hard set rule. No less than 2, no more than 10. For most actions that warrant a roll, the narrator will choose a difficulty ranging from 1 to 5. Never 6. Never 0. A Wits 3 means that the character is forming a pool with their Wits attribute and rolling against a difficulty of 3. Once the pool has been rolled, set aside any 6s, because those are nudges. Take note of all the matching dice. The number shown on the highest set of matching dice is the result. If the result is the same as or higher than the difficulty, the action is success. Otherwise, it's a failure. Then you determine the outcome. The outcome is a scale, and you subtract the difficulty from the result. As an example, on our Wits 3 roll, we have a matching pair of 4s. Our outcome is then 1, which is a good success. A failed result starts at 0. Should an outcome go into the negative for any reason, each negative point of outcome is a complication. I know that was complicated, so let's talk about that again, right? You form your dice pool based on traits, tools, circumstances, burdens, anything that's going to help you increase your dice pool. Nudges can add other benefits, or you can catch a beat, which again we'll talk about here in a minute. And the dice pool that you roll can never be bigger than 10. It can also never be smaller than 2. When you start rolling the dice, it will start to feel more commonplace. For time measurement, a typical beat is just a variable length of time. It can be 30 seconds, it can be a few hours. It's typically active time. A character can only take one significant action per beat. A character who quote-unquote catches a beat by spending 3 or more nudges, they get an extra action. That action cannot be saved and is lost if not used immediately. Any character who loses a beat has to sit the next beat out, and they're unable to take any meaningful actions. In a combat, each turn or each round is 1 beat. Outside of combat, a beat can be any length of time. Breathers are kind of like rests, right? So if you're used to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, you've got short rests and long rests. In Mistborn, you've got short breathers and long breathers. And these are just downtime. A short breather is either an hour to a day. And during that short breather, you can recover half of any of your resiliences. You can store up to 10 charges in your Ferukami rating in 1 Metal Mind, and you can just do downtime things. For a long breather, you can recover all of your lost resiliences, you can recover any spent standings, you can replace all lost or destroyed props, including your Mistborn vials. However, you do discard all equipment that isn't a prop. So anything that's been purchased, anything that was taken from foes, anything that you found, that all gets discarded during a long breather. And you store up to 30 Ferukami rating in charges in 1 Metal Mind. You can also, during a long breather, spend advancements. For this video, we are focusing on what happens in a round. In a conflict round, you start with your declaration phase, and this is going to feel really, really familiar for anyone who's used to Vampire the Masquerade or Werewolf the Apocalypse or Hunter the Reckoning. The character with the lowest wits declares first, and the character with the highest declares last. During a combat action or a combat round, you can take 1 action, including anything that requires a roll. When attacking, name the resilience that's being targeted. General rule: physical attacks target health, social attacks reduce reputation, and mental attacks are for willpower. Once all the actions are declared, the narrator and the characters gather their action dice. So these are the dice from the character's primary action any tools, any traits, or anything that could inflate that related to the action, those become the action dice, right? They're not your dice pool, they're just action dice. After all declarations, the turn order is determined by who has the most action dice to the fewest. Once the combat round begins, players use their action dice to form their dice pools, again between 2 to 10, and any unused action dice, here's a caveat, become defense dice. So in conflict, in combat, you don't get the automatic nudges anymore. You get defense dice. A quick recap, declarations are done from lowest to highest wits for the purposes of how your character reacts. During declaration, characters determine their action dice and you set them aside. Turn order is based on highest number of action dice to lowest number of action dice. On the character's turn, they form their dice pool from their action dice. Any unused action dice become defense dice. Once action dice are spent in a turn, they cannot be regained that turn. Now, if you catch a beat, you get another immediate action, but you don't regain any of those dice that you spent the first time. The Mistborn tabletop wouldn't be the Mistborn tabletop if it weren't for the powers. The basics of using the powers is that the character's rating in that power is used to determine their dice pool while using said power. Some powers have extra abilities such as stunts, flares, their blessings. A flare increases the potency of burning that metal, but it also makes that metal burn faster. And each individual metal has its own burn down and its own flare rate, as well as what those increases do. An elementic stunt is just a way to improve what a power does. So a soother could easily target one person, but if they want to target multiple people, they would need the effect crowd stunt. There is an advancement track at the bottom of your sheet. So instead of experience, players in Mistborn are given advancements. And this is up to the narrator, but typically anytime you accomplish something important to your hero or the story. So like completing a scheme, achieving a personal goal, making a critical choice, revealing a powerful secret, all of these things could earn advancements in varying scales. At no point in time can you have more than 20 advancements. That's the max. Even if your cup overfloweth, they disappear. You don't keep them in a cache. You can spend these advancements during a long breather to power up your character permanently, right? So you could do something like spend 2 advancements to change a trait, or you could spend 4 to gain a new elementic stunt. If you're a ska or a noble without any powers, you could spend 20 to snap into a Mistborn. Just work with your narrator during a long breather to work out how your advancements are spent and what's improved. On page 122 of the Mistborn core book, there is a list of all the advancements that you can buy. Time for some final thoughts and opinions. This game is absolutely everything I would hope for from the mind of Brandon Sanderson. All of that aside, this book is dense, and it can be difficult to work through. Whether in-game or even while writing the script for this video, I had to jump through multiple pages, I had to jump through multiple chapters, I had to stop and look for things, and it's not just like, oh yeah, where's that spell? It's, okay, so how does combat work? Okay, wait, it's talking about nudges. Okay, well, where are nudges at again? Okay, how do nudges work? Okay, that's how, okay, where is this at? Where is this rule? It was a lot of back and forth. The designers seem to take some of that into account. Oftentimes, you will see page numbers listed out when they reference another rule or another action. The downside to that is that you may be on page 350 and it tells you to go back to page 72. If you are new to TTRPGs, I wouldn't recommend this as your first one unless you are really well versed in the novels or you're at a table with a couple of RPG veterans. There is so much in this book and so much going on at any point in time that it can get overwhelming. It's a really unique system, and it's a lot of fun if you're a fan of Mistborn. If you're looking for something new, this could easily be your next game. As always, thanks for watching. Please hit that like and subscribe for more how-tos. This channel has a D&D actual play called Through the Hollows, and you can watch us stumble through some of these rules on our Mistborn actual play called Always Another Secret. Yep. As always, keep your wits sharp and your daggers sharper. Happy adventuring.